The stars shimmered against the vast darkness of space as the human warship, Resilient, pushed through the unknown regions beyond mapped space. Captain James stood at the bridge's main viewport, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. The ship had been exploring for 3 months, looking for signs of intelligent life. Today, they had finally found it. "Sir, multiple ships detected at bearing 270, reported Tom from his sensor station. His voice carried the calm professionalism that came from years of deep space service. "They're unlike anything in our database." James nodded, a slight smile crossing his face. This was what they had come for. "Show me." The main screen lit up with images of sleek vessels that looked like they were made of flowing silver. Their designs were beautiful, but clearly built for war. Weapon ports lined their hulls, and their shapes spoke of speed and power. "Open standard greeting channels," James ordered. "Let's do this by the book." The communications officer, Bill, worked his console with practiced ease. "Channel open, broadcasting in all known frequencies." James cleared his throat. "This is Captain James of the Earth vessel Resilient. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations." The bridge crew waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. The alien ships maintained their position, neither advancing nor retreating. "Sir," Tom's voice carried a note of concern. "They're powering up something. Energy readings are climbing." "Maintain position," James commanded. "Show them we mean no harm." Shields at minimal power, weapon systems locked down. The response came not in words, but in searing beams of energy that slashed through space. The Resilient rocked violently as the first hits landed. "Shields up." James grabbed his chair as the ship shuddered. "What's our status?" "Direct hits on decks 3 through 7. The damage control officer's fingers flew across his screen. "Port side armor is holding, but we've lost 30% capacity in that section." James' expression hardened. They had followed first contact protocols perfectly, and this was the response they got. "Return fire." "No, sir," his weapons officer replied. "Their shields are unlike anything we've seen. Standard weapons might not penetrate." Another blast rocked the ship. Warning lights flashed across every console as smoke began to fill the bridge. "Sir, they're charging for another volley," Tom reported. "Based on these readings, they're not trying to disable us. They mean to destroy us." James's mind raced through options. The Resilient was tough, but they were outgunned and facing unknown technology. Yet his ship had one advantage these aliens clearly didn't expect. Humans never built anything without a backup plan. "Engineering," he called out. "Is the pulse drive ready?" "Yes, sir," came the reply. "But, sir, using it this close to their ships could tear us apart." "Better torn apart by our own technology than destroyed by theirs." James straightened in his chair. "All hands, brace for emergency maneuver. Engineering, on my mark. Activate the pulse drive." The alien ships were closing in, their weapons charging for what they probably thought would be the killing blow. They had no way of knowing that humans had developed the pulse drive specifically for situations like this, when running away wasn't just an option, but a tactical choice. Now, the pulse drive activated, creating a bubble of distorted space-time around the Resilient. For a fraction of a second, the ship existed in multiple locations at once. The alien weapons fired, their beams passing through empty space where the Resilient had been. When reality snapped back into focus, the Resilient was 3 light minutes away, its hull groaning from the stress but intact. "Damage report," James ordered, pulling himself up from where the maneuver had thrown him. "Hull breaches on decks 5 and 6, contained by emergency fields. Pulse drive is offline. We burned out most of the coils." "But, sir," Tom paused, checking his readings again. "We got something from them when they hit us. Their sensor scans, weapons data, shield frequencies. It's all been recorded." James allowed himself a grim smile. The aliens thought they were teaching humans a lesson about venturing too far from home. Instead, they had just given humanity's finest engineers everything they needed to prepare for the next encounter. Plot a course home, he ordered, and download everything we have to the secure database. Earth needs to know. We're not alone out here, and not everyone wants to be friends. The Resilient limped away from the battle, damaged but not defeated. In the ships they left behind, the aliens congratulated themselves on driving off the primitive human vessel, not realizing they had just started a chain of events that would shatter their assumptions about humanity's capabilities. The massive display screen in the Valen High Command Center showed hundreds of ship movements across their territory. Most of the leaders paid no attention to the small red dots appearing at the edges of their space, but Kir couldn't look away from them. The young analyst had spent 3 cycles studying these patterns, and something wasn't right. High Commander, Kir spoke up during the daily briefing. I've noticed unusual activity in sectors 7 through 12. The human vessels. Enough about these humans. High Commander Rel waved his hand dismissively. One primitive ship that ran away does not concern us. Return to monitoring the real threats. Kir sat down, but kept watching the screen. The others didn't see what he saw. How the red dots never appeared in the same place twice. How they vanished as quickly as they appeared, testing the Valen's response times. Meanwhile, aboard the Earth Fleet Command Station, Admiral Reed stood before a different set of screens. The room was dark except for the soft blue glow of tactical displays, showing the positions of 30 Earth warships spread across the border of Valen space. Report from the Dauntless, sir. Lieutenant Ray handed over a tablet. They've mapped another 3 Valen patrol routes. Their defense grid has 6 blind spots we can exploit. Reed nodded, his face illuminated by the screen's glow. The resilience data from the first encounter had been worth its weight in gold. Every weapon frequency, every shield pattern, every communication protocol. The Valen had unknowingly given Earth's engineers exactly what they needed. How are the new shield modulators performing? Reed asked, touching one of the ship icons on his display. Better than expected, sir. The Valen won't be able to lock onto our ships like they did with the Resilient. We can match their frequencies and slip right through their scanning nets. Back in Valen space, Kir couldn't sleep. He pulled up the sensor logs from the Resilient encounter, something others had dismissed as unimportant. The human ship's escape method shouldn't have been possible according to Valen physics, yet it happened. And now, 3 months later, the signs were everywhere. Brief sensor contacts, unexplained energy readings, communication disruptions that lasted exactly 7 seconds. Computer, overlay all anomalous readings from the past week, Kir commanded. The screen filled with dots that seemed random at first, but when he connected them, "No," he whispered. "They're not running away. They're surrounding us." In his private quarters, Admiral Reed reviewed the final preparations. The new weapons were ready, designed specifically to bypass Valen shields based on the data they'd collected. The ships had been positioned carefully, piece by piece, looking like random patrol activity to anyone who wasn't paying attention. Message from Earth Command, sir. Ray entered the room quietly. They've approved the operation. We have authorization to proceed. Reed stood up and walked to his viewport, looking out at the stars. He didn't want war, but the Valen's unprovoked attack on the Resilient couldn't go unanswered. Humanity had learned long ago that showing weakness only invited more aggression. Send the order, Reed said. All ships to commence Operation Awakening at 600 hours. Remind all commanders, we show them our strength, but we're not like them. No civilian targets, no excessive force. We want them to respect us, not fear us. As the orders went out, Kira rushed through the halls of High Command with his evidence. The patterns were clear now. The humans weren't just probing their defenses, they were learning, adapting, preparing. Each of those small red dots wasn't a lost ship or a random encounter. They were pieces of a puzzle, and the picture they formed was terrifying. High Commander. Kerr burst into the command center. You need to see this immediately. The humans. They're not. The alarm klaxons cut him off. Across the massive screen, Dozens of new contacts appeared simultaneously. The small red dots were now bright and clear, moving with purpose and precision. The human ships had dropped their stealth protocols all at once, revealing themselves in perfect attack positions around key Valen military installations. High Commander Rel stared at the screen, his previous dismissal of the human threat turning to ash in his mouth. The pieces Kerr had tried to warn them about had become a noose, drawn tight around their necks before they even knew it was there. The first reports of human attacks began flooding in, and with them came a terrible realization. These were not the actions of a primitive species. This was the carefully orchestrated plan of a race that had used the Valen's own arrogance against them. The first human strike came without warning. The Valen defense station in Sector 9 never saw the warship Thunderbolt coming. One moment their screens were clear, the next, a massive human vessel hung in space, less than a kilometer from their main reactor. Impossible, the station commander muttered, staring at his displays. Their sensors were the best in known space. Nothing could get this close without detection. Nothing. The Thunderbolt's captain appeared on their screens. Valen Station 9, power down your weapons or we will be forced to disable them. You have 30 seconds to comply. In the station's command center, alarms blared as more human ships appeared, surrounding them completely. Their perfect defense grid had been torn apart like paper. "Sir," a young officer called out, "their weapons, they're already locked onto every critical system we have. The targeting solutions are perfect." "How did they?" "The Resilient," another officer interrupted. "When we scanned them during the attack, they weren't just running away. They were learning about us." Before the station commander could respond, reports flooded in from across Valen space. Human ships were hitting military installations everywhere, appearing out of nowhere, their weapons bypassing shields that had been thought impenetrable. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Reed watched the operation unfold. Each strike was precisely timed, each target carefully chosen. The Valen were learning what happened when you underestimated humanity. "Sir," Lieutenant Ray reported, "all primary targets are secured. Minimal casualties on both sides. The Valen are following our warnings and powering down their weapons." Reed nodded. The plan was working perfectly. Humanity wasn't here for revenge or destruction. This was about sending a message. Back in the Valen High Command, Kier worked frantically at his console, trying to understand how the humans were moving so freely through their space. The sensor data was incredible. The human ships weren't just using advanced stealth technology. They were bending space itself, using principles that the Valen had never even considered. "Look at this," he called to the other analysts. "Their ships are creating micro-distortions in reality. They're not traveling through our defense grid. They're slipping between the spaces in space itself." High Commander Rel watched in stunned silence as another military installation went dark. The humans weren't destroying anything. They were systematically disabling every weapon, every shield generator, every piece of military technology the Valen had. "How are they doing this?" Rel demanded. "How do they know exactly where to hit us?" A junior officer spoke up, his voice shaking. "Sir, they're using our own targeting frequencies against us. Everything we use to attack the Resilient. They studied it all. Our weapons, our shields, our tactical protocols. They learned more from one encounter than we have in a century of warfare." Across Valen space, military commanders watched helplessly as their mighty defenses were dismantled with surgical precision. The humans moved like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will, their weapons cutting through Valen shields like they weren't even there. On a Valen colony world, a group of civilians gathered around a public view screen, watching as a human warship disabled the orbital defense platform that had protected their world for generations. But instead of following up with an attack on the defenseless colony, the human ship simply moved on to its next military target. "They could destroy us," one colonist whispered, "but they're choosing not to. Why?" The answer came soon enough. Every communication device in Valen space lit up with the same message: broadcast on all frequencies in perfect Valen language. Your unprovoked attack on our ship was noted. Your assumption of our inferiority was noted. Your military capability has been neutralized not to destroy you, but to show you that peace was always the better option. We await your response. In the High Command Center, Kier finally allowed himself a small smile. He had tried to warn them about underestimating the humans. Now everyone understood what he had seen in those sensor readings. Humanity wasn't just another spacefaring race. They were something entirely new, a species that had turned the Valen's own arrogance into their greatest weakness. The first strike was over in less than an hour. Not a single life had been lost, but everything about the balance of power in this region of space had changed forever. The Valen's mighty military had been reduced to watching helplessly as their weapons were turned off one by one, defeated not by superior firepower, but by humanity's ability to learn, adapt, and overcome. The Grand Council chamber of the Valen Alliance had never been so quiet. 50 of the most powerful leaders in their space sat in stunned silence as they watched the human transmission play again on the massive central screen. The human admiral's face filled the display, calm and composed. 3 months ago, your forces attacked an Earth vessel attempting peaceful contact. Admiral Reed's voice echoed through the chamber. You assumed we were primitive. You assumed we were weak. That assumption has cost you your entire military defense network. The Valen leaders shifted uncomfortably in their seats. In just one day, the humans had disabled every major weapons platform, defense station, and military installation across their territory. Not through destruction, but through a display of technical superiority that was impossible to ignore. We do not seek war, Reed continued. We seek accountability. The officers who ordered the attack on the Resilient will face justice. Your military leadership will be reformed, and you will understand that humanity comes not as your subjects, but as your equals or your superiors, if you force us to prove it further. High Commander Rel stood up, his face dark with rage. We cannot submit to these demands. We are the Valen Alliance. We have ruled these stars for 1,000 years. A younger council member spoke up. And in one day, these humans proved that those 1,000 years taught us nothing but arrogance. Before Rel could respond, the human transmission shifted. The screen showed a small probe floating in space near one of the Valen's most distant outposts. What happened next made every leader in the room freeze. The probe activated, releasing a pulse of energy unlike anything they had ever seen. Space itself seemed to bend and twist. A hole opened in reality. Not a jump gate or a warp point, but something entirely different. Through this hole, they could see Earth's solar system, over 10,000 light-years away, as clearly as if it were next door. This is a fraction of our capability, Reed's voice returned. What you see is the future of space travel. We can reach any point in the galaxy instantly. Your borders mean nothing. Your defenses mean nothing. We could have destroyed you. Instead, we chose to disable your weapons and show you a better path. In a corner of the council chamber, Kier worked frantically at his datapad, analyzing the probe's energy signature. What he saw made him gasp. The humans weren't just bending space. They were rewriting the laws of physics themselves. The council erupted into chaos. Some demanded immediate surrender, others called for desperate resistance. The debate grew heated until another human transmission cut through their arguments. This time, it showed recordings from Earth's history, wars, peace treaties, technological advances, cultural achievements. The message was clear. Humanity had learned its hardest lessons on its home world through centuries of conflict and resolution. We offer you a choice. Reed's final message played. Join us as equals in a new age of exploration and discovery, or cling to your outdated beliefs of superiority and face the consequences. You have 6 hours to decide. The council chamber split into factions. The younger leaders, led by those who had seen the human ships in action, pushed for acceptance of the terms. The old guard, with Rel at their head, refused to bow to what they saw as upstart primitives. Don't you understand? Kier finally spoke up. addressing the entire council. They're not giving us a choice between surrender and resistance. They're giving us a choice between growth and stagnation. Everything they've shown us, the space-bending technology, the precision strikes, the probe, it's not just about military power. They're showing us how much more we could learn if we stopped assuming we knew everything. As if to emphasize his point, new data flooded their screens. The humans were sharing technical readings from their demonstration, showing the Valen exactly how they had accomplished their feats. It was both a peace offering and a warning. This was just the beginning of what humanity could do. The 6-hour deadline approached as the Valen Council argued and debated. But deep down, they all knew the truth. The age of Valen superiority was over. The only question now was whether they would accept this new reality with dignity or force the humans to prove their power one final time. The mighty Valen warship Eternal Light cut through space like a silver blade. War leader Marcus stood on his command deck, watching the stars streak by. In 30 years of service, he had never lost a battle. The High Command had given him one simple mission: find the human fleet and destroy it. Contact bearing 347, his sensor officer reported. Energy signature matches human vessels. Marcus smiled. After 3 days of searching, they had finally found their prey. The Eternal Light was the finest warship ever built by the Valen, equipped with technology that had been kept secret even from their own military. If the humans could disable regular Valen ships, this one would show them what true power meant. Battle stations, Marcus ordered. Begin pursuit. The human ships, 3 smaller vessels, fled into a dense nebula. Purple and green gases swirled around them, playing havoc with sensors. Marcus watched them disappear into the cosmic storm with growing satisfaction. They were running, just like the Resilient had run. "Sir," his tactical officer spoke up, "their flight path seems odd. They're not trying to escape. They're leading us somewhere." Marcus waved away the concern. "They're desperate. Running blind. Follow them in." The Eternal Light plunged into the nebula. Lightning-like discharges crackled across its hull as it pushed through the cosmic clouds. The human ships stayed just at the edge of their sensor range, always visible but never quite catchable. Hour after hour, the chase continued. They passed through the nebula into an asteroid field, then through a region of strange spatial distortions, and finally into a dark sector where the stars seemed fewer and dimmer than normal. "War leader," the tactical officer's voice had an edge of worry now. "We've lost contact with High Command. These humans, they're not running like frightened prey. Every turn they make is perfect, every maneuver exactly calculated." Marcus gripped his command rail tighter. Something was wrong. The humans weren't making mistakes. They weren't getting tired. They were moving like they know exactly where they're going, he whispered. Then it hit him. It's a trap. All engines full reverse. But it was too late. Space itself seemed to twist around them. Where there had been empty void moments before, now there were human ships. Not 3, but 30. They had been there all along, hidden in ways the Valen couldn't understand, waiting for the Eternal Light to be drawn into their web. Impossible. Marcus breathed. His mighty ship, the pride of the Valen fleet, was completely surrounded. The humans had pulled off a hunting maneuver that should have been beyond any species' capability. "Sir," the sensor officer's voice cracked with panic. "They're not using regular drives. The space around us, they're controlling it somehow. We can't jump out." On his tactical display, Marcus watched in horror as more human ships simply appeared from nowhere. They weren't using jump points or warp gates. They were stepping through holes in reality itself, appearing exactly where they wanted to be. "Send the emergency signal," Marcus ordered. "All hands prepare for." The message that cut across all their communications channels made his blood run cold. Warning. Human warship closing in. Eyes locked on target. It wasn't just one human warship. It was all of them. Every single vessel in the human fleet had their weapons trained on the Eternal Light. The trap wasn't just perfect, it was elegant. They had used the Valen's own pride and aggression against them. "Sir," his weapons officer reported quietly, "their targeting systems, they're not like anything we've seen. They've matched our shield frequencies perfectly. One shot from any of them could cut us in half." Marcus stood straight and proud on his command deck. In all his years of service, he had never lost a battle. But he had also never faced an enemy like this, one that could turn space itself into a weapon, that could hide an entire fleet in plain sight, that could predict and counter every move before it was made. The humans didn't need to fire a shot. The message was clear. The mighty Eternal Light, pride of the Valen fleet, had just learned the same lesson as the rest of their military. They weren't the hunters at all. They were the ones being hunted, and the humans had just proven themselves to be far better at it. The warning message flashed across every screen on the Eternal Light. Human warship closing in. Eyes locked on target. It wasn't just a message. It was an echo of the Valen's own arrogance coming back to haunt them. Multiple weapons locks detected. The tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. They're everywhere, sir." War leader Marcus watched as human ships emerged from what seemed like tears in space itself. Each vessel moved with perfect precision, each weapon aimed with deadly accuracy. The proud Eternal Light, terror of 1,000 battles, was now trapped like a small fish in a net. "Sir, they're hailing us," the communications officer announced. The main screen lit up to show Admiral Reed standing on his bridge. The human looked calm, almost relaxed, as if this was all going exactly as planned. Behind him, Marcus could see displays showing every detail of the Eternal Light's systems. Shield frequencies, weapon loadouts, crew locations, everything. War leader Marcus, Reed spoke clearly, without a trace of anger or triumph. "Your ship's reputation precedes it. The Eternal Light, finest vessel in the Valen fleet, equipped with your most advanced technology. Technology you thought you kept secret from everyone." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. How could they know about the ship's classified systems? Reed continued, "Would you like to know how we found every hidden weapon, every backup shield generator, every secret compartment in your ship? Look at your long-range sensors. Look carefully." Marcus turned to his sensor display. At first, he saw nothing unusual in the surrounding space. Then he noticed something impossible: tiny distortions, barely visible, scattered throughout the area. They had been there the whole time, watching, recording, learning. "Microprobes," Reed explained. "We deployed them 3 months ago, right after your people attacked the Resilient. They'd been studying your entire civilization, every ship, every station, every secret facility. We know more about your technology than you do." To prove his point, Reed pressed a button. Suddenly, every hidden system on the Eternal Light shut down simultaneously. Backup generators, emergency drives, even the secret quantum torpedo launchers that only 3 people in the Valen Alliance knew existed, all went dark. "How?" Marcus demanded. "How is this possible?" "The same way we trapped you here," Reed replied. "We don't just bend space. We understand it. Your sensors see what's in front of them. Ours see the spaces between spaces, the gaps in reality itself. We've been watching you through those gaps, learning, preparing." As if to demonstrate, one of the human ships simply vanished, then reappeared inside the Eternal Light's shield perimeter. Something that should have been physically impossible. Marcus and his crew stared in shock as the human vessel hung there, close enough to see individual hull plates with the naked eye. "Your shields don't stop us because we're not trying to go through them," Reed explained. "We go around them, through the spaces that exist between moments of time. Your weapons can't target us because we're never quite where we appear to be. This isn't magic, War Leader Marcus. It's simply science you haven't discovered yet." The human admiral's words struck deeper than any weapon could have. The Valen had always prided themselves on their technological superiority, their mastery of space warfare. But these humans didn't just match their technology. They operated on a completely different level of understanding. 3 months ago, your people made a choice, Reed continued. They chose to attack a ship trying to make peaceful contact. They chose to assume that different meant inferior. They chose pride over wisdom. Now you have a choice to make. Marcus looked around his bridge. His mighty ship was helpless, surrounded by vessels that could apparently ignore the laws of physics as the Valen understood them. But the humans hadn't fired a shot. They hadn't killed a single crew member. They had simply shown up and proved, beyond any doubt, that the age of Valen military supremacy was over. What choice? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. The same choice we always offer, Reed replied. Learn from this moment, or be defined by it. Your ship, your crew, your pride, all can survive this day. The only thing we require is your understanding of the new reality. The time of assuming humans are primitive is over. War leader Marcus had never imagined he would walk onto a human ship as anything other than a conqueror. Yet here he was, stepping through the airlock of the Earth flagship Unity, not as a prisoner, but as a representative of the Valen Alliance. The difference between what he had expected and what he found struck him immediately. The human ship's interior wasn't the primitive, functional space he had imagined. Instead, it was a perfect blend of advanced technology and comfortable design. Plants grew in carefully maintained sections along the corridors, their leaves helping to clean the air. Crew members moved with purpose but without fear, nodding respectfully as they passed. Admiral Reed met him in a conference room with a view of space. Through the massive window, Marcus could see his own ship, the Eternal Light, surrounded by the human fleet that had so easily captured it. But what caught his attention was the way the stars looked different from here, clearer somehow, as if the humans could see light itself in a way the Valen never had. Your ship's systems have been fully restored, Reed said, gesturing for Marcus to sit. We never intended to keep you disabled, only to make a point. You made several points, Marcus replied, looking at the star field. But I don't understand why you're showing me all this. Why not simply destroy us and be done with it? Reed smiled. Because that's what you would have done. And that's exactly why we need to show you a different way. A holographic display appeared between them, showing the galaxy in perfect detail. But it wasn't like any star map Marcus had ever seen. He could see waves of energy flowing between the stars, connections, and patterns that the Valen had never noticed. This is how we see space, Reed explained, not as empty void with islands of matter, but as an interconnected web of energy and possibility. Every point connects to every other point, if you know how to look for the connections. Marcus watched as the display zoomed in to show a human ship using what they called slip space technology. It wasn't breaking any laws of physics. It was using laws the Valen hadn't even discovered yet. 3 months ago, your people attacked one of our ships, Reed continued. But instead of seeking revenge, we used that encounter to learn about you. Every scan you took of the Resilient taught us about your technology. Every shot you fired showed us your weapons. You gave us the keys to your kingdom without realizing it. And now, Marcus asked, what do you want from us? Reed waved his hand, and the hologram changed to show something new. Designs for joint human-Valen research stations, plans for combined fleet operations, educational exchange programs. We want what we originally came for: peaceful contact, mutual understanding, and shared progress. The Valen Alliance has ruled this sector of space for 1,000 years. You've gathered knowledge and experience we could learn from, and we have discoveries and perspectives that could help you grow. Marcus looked at the plans, then back at the stars. His people had always seen themselves as teachers, never students, but watching a human ship slip between the folds of space-time outside the window, he realized how much they had yet to learn. The High Command won't easily accept this change, he warned. They already have, Reed replied, bringing up another display showing the Valen Council's emergency session. While we've been talking, they've been voting. The choice between stagnation and growth wasn't as difficult as some thought it would be. The next few hours were spent discussing details of what would be called the Terra-Vallon Accord. It wasn't a surrender document, it was a partnership agreement. The humans would share their understanding of slip space technology, and the Vallon would share their centuries of experience in galactic governance. As Marcus prepared to return to his ship, he paused at the airlock. "You could have destroyed us at any time," he said. "Why go to all this trouble?" Reed's answer was simple. Because true strength isn't about having the power to destroy. It's about having the wisdom to find a better way. Your people attacked one of our ships, and in response, we didn't just show you our military might. We offered you the stars themselves, seen through new eyes. The war leader looked one last time at the strange, beautiful view of space from the human ship. His people had been so proud of their knowledge, yet they had been like children playing in the shallows of a vast ocean. Now, thanks to humanity's strange mix of power and patience, they had a chance to swim in deeper waters. The age of Vallon supremacy was over, but something far more interesting was just beginning.